Alright guys, today we have some pretty significant news about PlayStation that has come out, and this comes directly from the president of PlayStation, the current CEO of PlayStation, that being Jim Ryan, and he had a lot to say. He did an interview with GameIndustry.biz, and unfortunately I cannot go over the entirety of it here because it's a very long read. There's a lot of information there to go over. Probably going to have to separate it into multiple videos, but what I wanted to do is go over the two most significant pieces of information from this GameIndustry.biz interview that I think you guys are going to find most significant. I know these are the things that stood out to me most, and it cannot be understated how significant this interview is, because this is essentially Sony kind of low-key letting us know what their vision is with the PlayStation 5 and next generation going forward. Obviously they're going to have more to say about it in a bigger way when we finally get the official reveal, but I think they're kind of trying to get this stuff out of the way so that when they do have their big shows, when they do go on stage, they're not wasting all of their time, you know, basically letting us know what exactly to expect. They're just going to show us, but this is their way of letting people know who are interested so we're not left in the dark, because there's no doubt that a lot of things have been happening at Sony behind the scenes that I haven't been speculating upon too much, simply because I feel as though we just didn't have enough information, and I could be completely wrong about anything I say, whether it's good or bad. But now we know officially what's going on behind the scenes, and frankly, it's all good from where I'm sitting, especially the second piece of information we're going to go over. Very, very significant. I really want to take some time to highlight it, but the first thing we're going to talk about here is how apparently Guerrilla Games' Hermen Hulst is now in charge of PlayStation Worldwide Studios. Says that Hermen Hulst, managing director and co-founder of Dutch developer Guerrilla Games, is PlayStation's new head of Worldwide Studios. The change comes as part of Sony Interactive Entertainment's restructuring ahead of the launch of the PlayStation 5 slated to release during fall 2020. Worldwide Studios president Shuhei Yoshida is also leaving his current role to lead a new initiative nurturing third-party independent studios. These moves follow the departure of Worldwide Studios chairman Shawn Layden after 32 years at the company. Hulst will start his new role immediately and manage all of Sony's game development across 14 internal studios, including the likes of Naughty Dog, Insomniac, Sucker Punch, and Santa Monica. In an interview with GameIndustry.biz, PlayStation CEO and president Jim Ryan noted that Hulst's appointment shows that Sony is thinking globally as it moves toward the next generation. I think everybody in Europe should be thrilled and happy and proud that this is happening, he said. Hermen is one of the most effective and well-respected leaders in the video game industry. He is a passionate advocate for the teams he leads and understands how to empower creative talent to build great experiences. I have no doubt Hermen can lead our teams to delivering compelling and diverse experiences at a steady cadence. So if you're wondering what that last part means there, where he's talking about delivering these, you know, unique and immersive experiences at a steady cadence, he's basically saying he is entrusting that Hermen Hulst will be able to ensure that they being Sony's studios, can consistently deliver these big AAA games that are not just copy and pastes of one another, but have their own unique things that make them stand out at a very even and consistent pace. And so this is some huge news. It's also really huge that Shuhei Yoshida is now moving to a new role with a new initiative, which is exciting. I think a lot of people were nervous, like, who's next to go? Is Shuhei Yoshida, is he going to end up leaving? But he's not leaving. I think we can all agree that he did a great job in his position, and now it's exciting to see he's going to be leading a new initiative where the focus is going to be purely on working with third-party independent developers, which is a big deal because for a while now, a lot of people were concerned that Sony was just completely ignoring and abandoning independent developers and just forgetting about them, but this is proof that they are not doing that. It's still very important to Sony. They still respect them and they still see the importance of that. This doesn't mean it's taking away from their AAA efforts. That's what some people were afraid of, that if they were to start focusing more on indies, they're going to stop caring about AAA. Not at all. They're just making room and, you know, kind of expanding here to do both. And this is where we're going to talk about, my opinion, the most important part of this information that we've gotten, that I really cannot emphasize enough how significant this is, and that's why we're going to highlight it. I'm going to do a little bit of reading here, so bear with me, but it's going to be worth it, okay? And I also want to let you know that this is reading directly from the GamesIndustry.biz article, which again, I can only go over a small portion of it here because it's a long read and there is a ton of information here, but this is easily the most, in my opinion, significant piece of information that has come out of this Jim Ryan interview. And I need to preface it by letting you know that they were talking about PlayStation Now, and Jim Ryan was talking about how it's still very important to Sony, and they are still working hard to grow it and remain competitive in that area. But naturally, the question then comes up, what does this mean for your first-party games? We know that you put God of War in there recently. Are you going to start putting your first-party games on the PlayStation Now day and date, kind of following the same thing Microsoft is doing? And we're going to go over what Jim Ryan had to say about that. So it says here, PlayStation Now is a more compelling offer today, but Sony has resisted putting new games into the service. Microsoft does that with its Game Pass subscription offering, with every new Xbox first-party game being available to subscribers. It's an area that is fast-changing and fluid, notes Ryan. The nature and scale of some of the first-party games that we are making leads us to think that right now it's better to spend energy on making sure that the launch of those games is a massive entertainment event. I would cite God of War and Spider-Man, and The Last of Us 2 next year will fall into that category. The Last of Us 2 will not appear in the PlayStation Now service at launch. That's where we stand right now, but our stance on the inclusion of first-party games in PlayStation Now in terms of what we've done this month is very different to our stance 12 months ago. I don't want to say this is what PlayStation Now is going to be like forever, but certainly right now, given how some of our first-party IP is incredibly special and valuable, we just want to treat them with amazing care and respect and have those launches be clean and pure. Now, he goes on to say, yet if subscription was to become the new normal for games, the business might need to change again. Microsoft is aggressively acquiring developers, and not so they can sell more boxes or downloads or even more consoles. They're doing it to attract more subscribers. PlayStation already has a large number of studios, including the recently acquired Insomniac Games, but is it enough? And he goes on to say that we are always looking, but we are careful about who we look and talk to. Buying studios right now is a very expensive undertaking. It is most definitely a seller's market. There is room for us to do more in the area, but we have to make sure that the company is right. The integration side of things, which is a boring business thing to talk about, but the world is littered with illustrations of that going catastrophically wrong post-acquisition. So the reason why I read that second part there is because it highlights Sony's stance even further. I mean, Jim Ryan made it pretty clear here that they still 110% see the value in exclusive content. They see the value in making these big AAA games, and as he says here, treating them like a massive entertainment event, and that is absolutely huge. Okay, it says directly here that they are not planning to put any of their games onto PlayStation Now day and date. They are not. This is Sony. This is Jim Ryan directly confirming that he is aware of Microsoft's strategy, but he's also aware that Sony, as of right now, holds the position of power. They have more brand recognition globally. They have sold the most amount of consoles. They sell the most amount of software. They know that they're in the lead, and because of this, there's no reason for them to be out here trying to follow everybody else. Everybody and their mother is trying to seemingly tell you that the position that Microsoft has, and even the positions that Google has coming in, which we are probably going to talk about that in a separate video because Jim Ryan had a few things to say about that as well, but making it seem like that this is the future, that we already know this is the future. And you know what? Maybe it is the long-term future, but that has yet to be seen. As far as we can see right now, Sony's been doing it right. They've been doing it right ever since they got into the market. They've been doing it right with every single PlayStation console, and it hasn't changed with the PlayStation 4. You can see here that the PS4 is the second best-selling home console of all time, which is insane. And at this point, Sony's competing with themselves in this area, and this is where he is out here reaffirming their commitment to exclusive content, to big AAA content, and making it very clear that going into PlayStation 5, that is not changing. But he is also letting us know that him and Sony are very much aware of how much things are changing, right? How they do need to remain on their toes and not get complacent and just assume that what's working now will always work. Now, if it were me, I would say there's nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, in having confidence that if you make great exclusive content, you will never have a problem selling your hardware. Okay, I firmly believe that. But at the same time, if you do have competitors like Microsoft and Google, and suddenly there's like a paradigm shift where suddenly Microsoft is taking the lead, and they're doing so with Game Pass, and they're clearly shifting their business model to, as he says here, caring more about subscribers than anything else. They don't really care too much about selling consoles. Even he said that, because this is made abundantly clear. Their metric for success has changed. Jim Ryan is sitting here letting us know that Sony's metric for success has not changed, because there's no need for it to change. They are the leader in their market right now. They're doing everything right, and you can just clearly see with the hype for games like The Last of Us Part 2 and even games like Ghost of Tsushima that are going to be coming out next year, how that hasn't changed. And so I really had to take time to really go in hard on this here and emphasize just how significant this is. This is literally Sony letting us know their plans going into PlayStation 5. I've seen so many people try to tell me and many others that, it is just a matter of time until Sony puts their first-party games onto PlayStation Now, day and date, just like Microsoft does. And while I will say this, you may to an extent be right, because 10 years from now, 15 years from now, maybe that is exactly what will happen, and maybe technically speaking, it is just a matter of time. But for the foreseeable future right now, this is Sony making it very clear that they have some huge value in their IP. They respect their IP. They respect it enough to where they know what they have. They know that their games are not games you just throw onto a service to pump up subscription numbers. They still have hardware to sell. They know that there's plenty of gamers out there. There's still a massive market, clearly with 100 million consoles sold, 102 million consoles sold, that still sees the value in console, and they are absolutely not going to abandon that market. I've been saying that for a long time now, but I feel as though we really have to emphasize it here and drive this point home to highlight that, to really just kind of quiet the naysayers, to quiet everybody out here who wants to believe. Everybody likes to call me an armchair analyst, but yet I'm the one over here that's pretty much right. Okay, like he's over here saying that they're taking a more open stance with PlayStation Now, clearly with what they're doing with God of War, right? And what we have to understand is that they put God of War onto PlayStation Now over a year after it was on the market, and the price of it was pretty much reduced down to $20. I think that that's perfectly fine, right? And if they were to do something like that going forward with most of their first-party titles, I think that that would be fine, right? But the point is, they still see the value in it. They still understand their market, and they respect their market, and they understand what the market wants. And I just feel that that is the most important thing to highlight from this entire thing. They have respect for their audience. They have respect for their own IP, and they're not going to be out here following other companies when they're in the lead. That makes absolutely no sense. If the day were to come where Sony's current strategy doesn't work anymore and suddenly their numbers are just falling and falling and falling, then you might see some significant changes. Then they might have no choice but to start following other industry trends or what other companies are doing in the industry. But they're not going to do that. They don't need to do that. They know how their audience works. They know what their audience wants. They've been doing this for a very long time, and this is why I have absolutely no problem with Jim Ryan being the new leadership, because he clearly understands what PlayStation is about and what its fans are about. So that does it for the video, guys. It turned out a little bit longer than I wanted it to, but there it is. Let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. I will be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Leave the video a like if you did enjoy it, found it informative, or are happy to hear this news. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.